We are live. We are live. We're live. I've got our friend in the old green room. I don't know why they call it green room. Why do they call it green room? There's fuck all green about it. But yeah, we've got him in. I'm gonna bring him up in a second. I'm just gonna start touching stuff and try not to break anything. Oh, whatever's going on here. I ain't broke anything yet. That's good. That's all I want. Why have I put that down there? I'll leave it there. Let's bring him up. Say hello. Say hello. I'm going to add you to the right-hand side. Look who we got. Look who we
Well,
got.
hello,
Hello.
everybody.
Ah,
Thank you for having me,
that's good.
Mr. Harsh. How are you?
We were supposed to do this before. That was my fault. I can't remember what happened. I can't remember yesterday, if I'm brutally honest. I know we was going to do it before, though, weren't we? And I can't fucking remember. But we are here, and it's been 2 years. Two years since this crime took place. God.
Isn't that hard to believe?
I
2
said to my
years.
missus earlier, I said, 2 years is gone in a fucking blink of an eye. Gone in a blink of the eye, literally. 2 years. But I suppose my first question to yourself, AR, and anybody in the chat as well, is when you consider that it's been 2 years and how they seemingly found his DNA at the crime scene, say, that's what they're rolling with. Did you think that this is where we would be here now, or would you have expected, if that was the case, to have been wrapped up by now?
You know, when this first came out and I started talking about it, I said it was going to be 5 to 7 years before I felt like we would be at the very end of a trial, because these things are just so tough to work through, and the different motions and the different things that happen in the courtroom. And obviously we're seeing all of that play out now, and it's fluffing some feathers for a lot of people. But to be honest, we're right on the path that I thought we would be. We're right about where I thought we would be. So
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose because I'm relatively new to it. Do you know what I mean? How long have I been on the platform? It'll be 3 years this Christmas. 3 years. I think my first upload. Can't remember. But I know it's 3 years. Just after Christmas, it'll be 3 years. And we've obviously covered some big cases, so not lots and lots of cases, but we've touched on some big cases. We obviously had the Summer Wells case, which took a massive amount of time. Then we had the Kylie Rodney case, and that kind of fed near enough immediately into the Idaho 4 case. We've had some on the peripheral as well, which have caused some drama, which Dope will absolutely know what I'm talking about when I say Michael Vaughan. Fucking hell, that's caused me some shit, that did. But it is what it is. We all have opinions, and I don't think that people should let their 5-year-old children walk about at night. That's as simple as that. If you're going to do that, eventually it's going to bite you on the arse, especially when that family had already had shots over the bow that had proven that boy was... There was a risk involved. Put a fucking lock on the gate. Done deal. And there you go. But have you seen the? There's been an interview with the Goncalves family. Who has seen that? Did you see the latest interview that the Goncalves family did? They've
I'll be
basically...
honest with you. I have not watched it just because of my frustration with them, and I don't want to come completely unglued. Coming to this day, I kind of have left some of their stuff going with the extracurricular GoFundMe's and things of that nature. But it's gonna be interesting. I'm sure you've got a good view of it, and I would love to hear your take. So
Well, to sum it up, to sum it up quite nicely, they've basically they're hard in the paint with Brian Coburg as a guy who's done it. They absolutely I genuinely I question myself, because I think to myself, what have you seen what we haven't seen? Do you know what I mean? Because the way I look at it is, and I don't know whether you're the same. If I and this is coming from a place where I don't understand because I've not been in their position, so I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that you can't understand a person's how they think and their thought process unless you've been in the exact same position as them. So there's a lot of facets to it. But my mentality on it would be if they've seen everything the same as what we've seen, then why are they not questioning anything? Not questioning anything at all, even if you take into consideration what Ray has said. And I know that some people are going to trust Ray more than what other people, but Ray wasn't pro Koberger. He flat out said, look, if all of the information comes in, it could prove that what they're saying of Brian is accurate. What I'm telling you as a professional in my field is the conclusion they've come to could not have been come to with this data, because this data doesn't include everything that it needs to include to conclude. So the fact that it's not all there would lead me to believe that potentially this information could be exculpatory, because if you add in the missing elements to it, then that could turn out a completely different conclusion than what you've concluded. So I don't understand why that family didn't even take notice of that and think, hold on a second, why isn't that got everything there? Why is there things missing? Because my thought process would be, my child has died alongside these other kids, and I want to make sure that justice is served. And if you believe in things being done properly, then I would want to make sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. They're coming across like they don't care about that. They don't care whether the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. They just want the conclusion that they feel is the right conclusion.
I actually have a question for you, and it's based upon exactly what you're saying. But do you think behind closed doors, in their own home, just between themselves, they truly believe, without a doubt, Brian Koberger's the person with no question? Or do you think they're still questioning in their mind because they've never trusted the initial investigation? They've never trusted the fact that the prosecution wouldn't talk to them and share information with them. So behind closed doors, do they have a different feeling than what they're putting on projected in front of all of us?
I think Christie is 100% convinced Brian Koberger did it. I don't think Steve is, but I think that together they have to show that they're together, that they are in agreement with one another. Because if they don't, something so important, and if Christie truly does absolutely and ferociously believe it, what would it mean if Steve was to say, "Look, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you," because we know. Look at on this platform alone. Me and you spoke before we came on here. Look at how people can turn, and look at how upset people can get if you make a comment about someone that they like, and that
Mhm.
person feels that that comment is out of place. So you put that in the mix, and you think, you're talking about the death of this lady's daughter, and the husband turned around and said, I don't agree with you. I can't agree with you. That's a battle that I don't think you could take on. And you have to kind of side with Steve in a sense that I think being someone's husband, you sometimes have to put that person before your own thoughts. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not going to add any positivity to it. And maybe, in answer to your question, I think behind closed doors, they're probably the same. But I think inside Steve's mind, I don't think that he's as sure as what Christie is. But they have to show
And
that solidarity, I think.
maybe that's where I different is when, I come out into the public arena. I'm very backing of my wife, and I'm always going to support her feelings and what she has to say. But behind closed doors, I'm always open to that discussion. because we're two different individuals and we do look at things differently and we do think differently. So I do sometimes put kind of my foot down, like I don't agree with you on this, and this is just where we stand. But when we go out here before all, we're going to interact and respect each other and never question each other. But I truly believe, just with the way that the family kind of has acted through all of this, Steve wants more answers. He needs the full answer to a question, where Christy could take the initial answer and just accept it and just be good with it because it finds the justice for her daughter, and that's her number one priority, is honoring her daughter, which I completely support. I support that. I hope they find, the inner heart and the love and everything that come to them, but there are still questions within the case, and I think that if they're not willing to acknowledge that there's still questions within a circumstantially based case, then you're not truly seeking full justice. You're only seeking answers to appease your feelings right here, right now. And at the end of the day, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, are you still going to be able to accept that very same feeling within you that your daughter got full justice?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because, like I say, you're trying to, I suppose you've got to think about what is the dynamic behind closed doors. Like you say, with you and your partner, you have the ability to have these discussions and say I don't agree, which is very much the same as me and my partner. Do you know what I mean? We've been
Yep.
together nearly 10 years and we've never ever had an argument, believe it or not. We've never had an argument, and I think that's because we have the ability to have different opinions. We know when it's probably best to let them do their own thing and not challenge them. You know what I mean? I know she's not going to be approachable before she's had her morning tea, but you could be in a
Right.
relationship where the male may think, well, why is she like that before she had tea? I'm not, that shouldn't be like that. So I'm going to fucking challenge it. Do you know what I mean? And then you're just going to butt
Yeah.
heads. And with respect of Steve
I,
and Christy, maybe Steve just isn't, he's not the stronger, he's not strong enough to challenge her. So he does close back down and think, but you could be right. Behind closed doors, maybe they are very, very different and they need to put on a bit of a persona, because at the end of the day they do have this Goncalves army, if you like, around them, and if they're not in agreement publicly, then what happens to that 60,000 people? Does that then become 20,000 of it supporting Steve and 40,000 of them supporting Christie, and there's no real common ground there? That's the
and at the end of the day, I would never, ever, ever want that. I want them to stay on the same page, even if I disagree with a lot of things. And trust me, I know you've been in the same situation as me. I've interacted via email, and I've learned my lessons through that, and I get it. But I never want them to, literally have more of the stress or more issues between them. I want their family to be able to heal and do what they need to do to get past this, because this is a very serious situation. But, I also scream to the rooftops, find some peace in the quietness to yourselves rather than bringing it out here to all of us. But,
yeah.
you know.
What, and since the beginning of it, and again we got 2 years of stuff, what has been the most frustrating piece of information that has come out, or the most frustrating thing that has happened during this time for you?
To me, it's the constant destroying of Brian Koberger's image through mainstream media. Just the attacks and the attacks and the attacks, as if they have any clarity or any full view of who this kid or his family is. Yet they've already found him guilty. He was a stalker at one point. Then he was, what was that kid's name? Papa Rogers. And he was against women. And then I mean, the story just continuously changes, and there's never been a moment of stepping back saying, this is a college student trying to enjoy life. There's never been a positive. It's always just negative.
Yeah,
And we as a society, you and I have talked about that as well. Even, for us or for individuals within the community of true crime itself, the negativity flows bright where the positivity is much harder to find. So it's been frustrating. It's been very frustrating.
yeah. It's probably the same for me. But I think what's quite interesting is you see it happening all the time, especially with mainstream media. It's like they have to go down a certain route. What is going to be, I don't know whether it's, I suppose they're no different than social media, but on a much bigger scale. So it's very interesting to see that they have to go in a certain direction. There's no challenge, and like with social media, obviously you get some challenge. We get some channels that will challenge Brian Koberger being guilty. You'll get some that are absolutely adamant he's guilty, and you get that
Hmm.
that differentiation across the board. Whereas social media, they're all on the same path. They're all in the same, which again is a sign that that mainstream media isn't, it's controlled. The entire platform of all these different newspapers, they might be different entities, but they are under the same umbrella, and you know that because they're all saying exactly the same thing. They're singing off the same hymn sheet, and it's like a fucking domino effect. One will come out and say Brian Koberger's an incel, he did this, he did that. The next one saying it, saying it, saying it, and it goes on and on and on. And we see the same in the Liam Payne situation right now. It's like the mainstream media has gone into, let's paint Liam Payne in a bad light. In this, he was this young boy who got into it. He couldn't handle it. He got into drinking and drugs, and his life was on this downward spiral. And they're all saying it
Hmm.
again. This fucking domino effect, and you just see it every time. But when you're talking about this kind of situation, what are the chances of people getting a fair trial at the end of it? Because ultimately, I know people to say, yeah, but it's a jury. The jury's going to get a bit like the jury, completely in a bubble away from it all. You know, the jury, whoever's picked it, they're in it. They're out in the public. It could be you or I if we was close by. Do you know what I mean? It's this. Look at Delphi.
The Yeah, the diversity within mainstream media lacks anybody willing to step up to the plate to be a little bit different. That's one thing that I do actually respect within the YouTube community. We all have our own voices. We all have our own direction. We have what we're wanting to say, what we feel like we need to say. Now, whether we all get along at the end of the day based upon what we do interject and what we do say is a whole nother story, but at least we have the opportunity to do that. Where I agree with you, in mainstream media, it's like they're handed a script at the very beginning of the Idaho 4 case. And it's okay, we need to direct people to knowledgeably believe he's a stalker. We need people to believe that he's an incel. We need all these things to clarify guilt, because if we don't build the guilt, there's going to be too many questions out there that could possibly lead to a conspiracy theory. And that's what people call people like me that say, hey, Brian Koberger's innocent. In my mind, I just don't see it. He's innocent. Well, now I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a different thought producer or, a different voice. I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah,
And that's what's sad about our mainstream media is if you don't think like us, then you're wrong. And
yeah.
that's not the way it should be.
No.
It's not the way it should be.
The funny thing is, I always think to myself, is like people will ask me, like, there's obviously I'm in the UK, so there is a contingent of people who have never heard of this case. Do you know what I mean? So they'll always turn around and say, "Why do you think he's innocent? What makes you? What's the single thing? What's the thing that makes you think that this guy didn't do this crime?" And I'm going to tell you my answer in a second. I'm going to put that question to you, and I'm also going to put it to the chat as well. and we'll get some of the comments and I'll ping them up on the screen. So that question goes to everybody. What is it that makes you think that Brian Kohberger could be innocent?
Legitimately, this is a man, and unfortunately, I've sat in that defendant's chair. I've been in that courtroom, so I get what the mentality of kind of how you react to certain things happening. And this young man has looked straight forward with patience, hasn't flinched about anything that didn't go his way. He's battling from start to finish. And I've seen so many people crumble within the courtrooms and under the pressure of, you got to be guilty. You got to be guilty. And that's Brian Cober's got to be feeling that pressure because they've been battling within even the motions. He knows what people are saying out here. He knows what people are saying in the media. Yet he sits there and he fights every step of the way. And the moment that he stood silent, I had this idea in my mind. I said, most people don't do this. Most people do not do this. I've seen it. I know all about it. I understand the meaning of it. Most don't do it. And the moment he did that, I kind of took this thought process to myself. He's going to battle this. And it's not battling it to create reasonable doubt. He's battling it because he truly knows I didn't do this, and I respect that, and I stand with that. And so I just all the way across the board, everything I see about him, and it's not even the back in the research in his young years or anything of that nature. Just the way he's acting in his demeanor compared to what people presented him to be. Remember, everybody at the beginning, Harsh, I'm sure you remember this. They all said he was going to be looking for notoriety. He was going to be trying to be in the front of everybody's eyes, that he's going to be the best next serial whatever, and that's not the case.
I remember
This
it
young
well.
man's patiently, yeah, he's patiently working his way right through this court process, and he's not giving in because he could have gave in, and he's not. So, I got good feelings about it.
Yeah. I have two things. One of them being, and people who have been around this channel, you probably, if you're anything like me, you may not be, because I don't get a lot of time to, even though I spend so much time on YouTube, I don't get that much time to watch other people. But my biggest issue was that I'll put a question out and I'll do it consistently. And that will be, if you're somebody who absolutely believes Brian Kohberger did this crime, to the point where you say, beyond a reasonable doubt, I'm at this stage, I'm happy. Let's not forget that unless there's a leak, which we'll stick a pin in that and we'll come back later, but Christy Goncalves literally said she doesn't want Kohberger to be breathing anymore. And we've got people out there and part of their community who are basically saying, kill the guy already. Get this over and done with. This is done. This is just delaying. You're just delaying inevitability. He shouldn't be alive. He shouldn't be breathing. He should be dead, right? So I'll say to people, I'll say, what is it that is convincing you of that? What evidence have you seen? What have you seen that is telling you this guy did this crime? And you're happy, you would be happy to watch him being executed based on what we know now. Don't come back and say there's more evidence, there's going to be more stuff that comes out, because that's a fucking cop-out. Because if that's it, you can't at this stage be happy to say, well, I'm happy for him to die then. What, based on an expectation that may not come forward? Because that's, if our society is going down in that route, that they're happy to fucking execute someone because they believe something might get said later. So what now? What's out there now that convinces you? And tell me, without citing something that you have heard from Court TV, News Nation, or the channel that you just happen to love that is them themselves balls deep in Kohberger's guilty. And how many comments do you think I get back with anything other than the knife sheath or the car? unless they are going to
That's
cite something from the aforementioned. It will either be the knife sheath or the car. And if that's all that these people can say is enough, then that's a fucking dangerous world that we live in. That is a very, very dangerous world that we live in.
yeah, and I try to remind people we are talking about a 100% circumstantial case at this point. If the prosecution had the most damning of evidence to find Brian Koberger dead to rights guilty, let's say a video of him walking into the house, a video of him leaving the scene in a hurry with the murder weapon and a bloody outfit blowing in the wind down the side of the car, it would have been slammed on that table in front of Brian Koberger and his attorney saying, "We got you. We've got you. You're done. You're done in." It's not a battle over evidence. It's not a battle over discovery. It's not this long, drawn out ordeal. Brian Koberger would be looking dead to rights at that table at the evidence that had him nailed, and he would know it. Trust me, as a defendant, you know when you're nailed.
Yeah.
They rub it into you. There's no action within the courtroom that shows me anything in the defense's belief that he's nailed,
Yeah.
which tells me it's completely circumstantial. And what we've heard is what they've got. That's all they've got. They don't have a smoking gun. They don't. They don't have it.
No, I don't. I don't think they do. I don't think they do at all. I think if they did, I think they would want the world to know they had it. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel about it. I feel that if there was genuinely a slam dunk, I don't think that Ann Taylor would be so. She seems very, very confident. We can't agree with everything that she's done ever since the beginning. I think she took a little bit of time to gain momentum. I think that she was a little bit out of her depth earlier on, and she had to find her feet. But Eliza Massif as well. You're seeing two of these people behaving publicly in this manner towards Brian, and I can't see it being that way if they felt we're talking to a guy who's fucking guilty. I just
Right.
can't see it. Not being public defenders, and I think that that's an important thing to consider. The fact that these aren't high powered lawyers. Brian Koberger doesn't come from a fucking wealthy family where they've got millions of dollars behind them, and you've got some fancy fucking $10,000 an hour, you know, lawyer there. That's
Yeah.
not what these people are. These are there to do their duty, their forced duty, if you like. Just and the way they're behaving, to me, it goes hand in hand with two women who genuinely believe this guy is innocent. Now they're either incredibly good at what they do and really shouldn't be working for the public. They should get themselves higher paid. The amount of people who have criticised Ann Taylor than the money that she gets, and you think, well, if Brian Koberger's guilty and she thinks he's guilty, then she's in the wrong fucking job
Mm,
because she
I
could be
agree.
getting paid a
I
lot
agree.
more money than what she's getting paid as a public defender.
Yeah, most definitely. And I know people would say, well, she did file to, become a private, but yeah, she's going to take on some cases. This is her make it or break it case, and she knows that. Um, but if Brian Koberger, in her eyes, was definitely guilty, she wouldn't have allowed this to become her make it or break it case. She would have distanced herself, but she's fully submersed. Now, I was worried at the last hearing. I think this new judge has created a dynamic where both sides are a little more intimidated of this judge because he knows what he's talking about. This man researches the cases. He even leads some of these other lawyers. And Jay Ombre, I have to give Pavarotti some credit because when he dissected the last hearing, he was nailing spot on some good stuff. So it's like I saw what he was saying, and I'm in agreement. I just found that the defense was a little bit weaker at this last hearing, and that worries me a little bit. And I hope they pick up some steam. But that might be because of Jay Logston, and he's the weak link of the three. So
I can't. Yeah,
that that might be the hurting point in the entire defense is that man right there, because his argument came off just worthless.
yeah, it's pointless.
I
Absolutely
mean,
pointless. We
uh,
kind of do talk about him off platform. I don't see the point of him being there. If I'm honest, like you've just said, I think he's does more harm than good. But everyone's got their place, I suppose. Everyone's got their place. He might come in and do something spectacular at some point, but I can't see it. But
you never know. He may come in and shock us in the next hearing, and all of
yeah,
a sudden,
yeah,
he's the most amazing Superman of a lawyer we've ever seen, and we'll all be shocked,
yeah.
as Brian walks out into dismissal or something crazy. So,
Do- so, based on that, you obviously we've just seen what's happened in Delphi. In your opinion, does what happened in the Delphi, and I suppose this is going to come down to a lot of what your personal opinion is on Richard Allen, but do you think that how that trial has gone bears any impact on how you feel the Idaho 4 case could go? Does that concern you at all? And just to
it
premise
makes
this,
me
it does me.
it makes me very, very nervous in watching the way the judicial system within the smaller communities of our United States is allowing things. The way Judge Gold was allowed to stay on that case after a Supreme Court decision has to overturn her decision to remove his lawyers, and she stays on the case, that disrupts everything because now her ego's hurt. She is hurt. So when I look over at the Idaho 4 case, I'm very determined to watch how is Hitler going to take something if Ann Taylor decides to go up and above his head to a Supreme Court decision to overrule something he's dictated, because he seems like he sets the guidelines, he sets the parameters. This is what we're going to do. Here's how much time. Boy, I'll tell you what, if he gets overruled on something, how angry could he get? And how's that going to affect Brian Coburn? And that's the worry that I have. Is this where our judicial system's heading? Is we're going to first of all allow cases to be tried not only with only circumstantial evidence, but also with the defamation happening within mainstream media to help guide guilt prior to even a trial? I mean, we have books out already. We have movies out already. We have Dateline. These things are not common. That's not common. Um, it worries me. I'm
Yeah,
worried. I am worried.
yeah, me too. And I think that this is a hard one, really, because obviously we have the gag order on the Idaho 4 case, and I've long felt that the gag order was basically it was weaponized by the prosecution. But the flip side of that coin is it was Ann Taylor who initiated that from the start. But it would seem, and whether from when I've listened to the hearings, it would also seem that there was an agreement that there would be a gag order, and that gag order would only run for a period of time, and between them they would come to an arrangement at when certain things would be ungagged, I suppose, and that seems to have overran somewhat. But yeah, I wonder whether these gag orders are enabling the system to ultimately get control where a where a jury is going to go. I think that's what's happened in Delphi. Whether
I
he's guilty or innocent, I don't think it wasn't proven in that courtroom 100%. Now, I've always felt that he had something to do with it. I wasn't in the Richard Allen is innocent camp. I'm not that person, believe it or not, but I felt that this was multiple people involved. I don't feel that one person on their own could have controlled that in the manner what it seemed to have been controlled. I don't think, because let's not forget that Abby and Libby were quite smart. They were very smart. Now, would they have been able to outsmart Richard Allen in that situation? We don't know, but I just don't see Richard Allen as some fucking criminal mastermind who could have done this crime in the way that it seems to have been done without there have been more of a fuck up. But ultimately,
I
the important thing is him getting proven guilty. And did they do that? No, they didn't.
I think too, one of my biggest frustrations is because of where I've been and what I've been through is, what are you doing putting an non-tried, non-found guilty individual into prison? Like, I know what prison's about. I know what happens on yards. I know the punishments. I know all that. What was he doing in a prison cell for any reason before even being to trial and being convicted? You just don't do that. You don't do that. And I don't care what people say that they did it for protection. In prison, there is no protection.
No,
None. It doesn't matter what cell, what yard, where you're at. There's no protection. So
no.
don't come at somebody like me and say, "Oh, it was for protection." No, I'm going to call your bluff. Like I'm going to call your bluff. And now you sent it. He got found guilty based upon uh, confessions, and that was my worry when I started hearing that he was supposedly. I'm going to say supposedly confessing, because there's a lot of things that went into that.
Yeah,
I knew that was going to be hard to overcome. That's
yeah,
hard to overcome. So,
yeah, yeah.
doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right.
No, but again, you're thinking about, like, we watched that guy go from what he looked like before he went in to what he looked like by the end of it. You know, he looked like a fucking prisoner of war by the end of it. But the damage had been done, and it all of this time, people were they'd been conditioned to believe that this was the guy who was going to finally put this case to bed. It was, I had no doubt, really. I suppose there was one, I think there was one day where I kind of thought, this could potentially swing the other way. But I think that I was quite confident he was going to get found guilty before he'd even before the date was even set. Because I think there was so much hatred and anger because of how long this had gone, that people want someone to pay. They want to bring it to an end, and that's what you get.
Well, and I want to give a little advice to those people that say, he was faking it. He was faking being crazy. Well, don't put him in a position that he could possibly do that. Keep him in a normal jail. Keep him with normal doctor treatment. Keep him with the normality of what people are like going to trial. Then you don't have to face those that come and say, "Hey, you mistreated him. You tortured him. You did," because it would have all been on the up and up. And then don't darken out the entirety of the case and the motions in the courtroom. That's another worry I have, that's going to happen within the Idaho 4. I think they're going to pull that blanket over everything, and those that want to see the transparency aren't going to be able to do that. And then the questions are going to get worse and worse, and the thoughts are going to get worse and worse, because people want to see what's happening and understand it based off of what they're seeing.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to question the darkness, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't want to try to think about the Idaho 4 in a dark bubble like we had to think about the Delphi. And it's going to be hard to think that we can't see the judge's rulings. We can't see the mannerisms of the lawyers. We can't watch the defendant when something is said in the court that doesn't go his way. I want to see that from Brian Koberger. I want to see somebody testify to what they know about Brian Koberger and see his reaction to that, because it's very telling.
yeah,
But if you take that away from all of us, now we're just taking someone's word on it. And I don't want to take someone's word on it. I want to see it. Like, I want to visually see it. So,
yeah. You know, I think everybody can agree, with respect of obviously the Idaho 4 and the crime itself, that whoever did this crime, they were. You've got to be a special kind of person to be able to do it. And that's.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
But what sort of person could do it? And do you believe that Brian Koberger could be? Because don't get me wrong, we've seen these killers in the past. You know, not we've said before. There's no specific mold. They don't look a certain way. You know, BTK. He was a family man, wife, daughter. You know, you've got Ted Bundy, for instance. He didn't look like a killer. He was, you know, some women would find the guy attractive. He was smart. He was, you know what I mean? And there isn't a mold, but do you look at Brian Koberger and do you get that vibe? Now, some people do, you know, they look at him and they get this vibe from him. But I think even Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, there's just something about them that, and this is only my opinion, you can kind of tell that there's something about them that just don't seem right. And with Brian Koberger, from what we've seen, and don't get me wrong, it's only a small thing, but there's been nobody come forward. Nobody whatsoever has really come forward and said anything negative about this guy. They haven't come forward and said he was skinning cats when he was younger. Or, you know, we had what? One female come out? He's nearly 30 years old, and we get one female who had an interaction with him on fucking Tinder, whatever it was. And that to me showed that interaction was almost like a bit of an immaturity with him. But we've had nothing else apart from the bar situation. Fuck me, how many times have you had a female tell you to fuck off in a bar? Do you know what I mean? Especially if you've been out and you've had a few drinks and you know, it's just that's part of. I'd be more fucking concerned if he'd never upset a fucking female in a bar in his fucking late teens, early 20s. Do you know what I mean? This is. Surely that's part of growing up, but people have weaponized that piece of information. But when you step back and think, okay, let's remove that because that's fucking normal. The one Tinder, can we really say that this guy who's 30, he wasn't like an 18-year-old. He was nearly 30, you know, he's nearly 30. He's surrounded by people all the time, you know, young girls and, you know, other students, whatever, and he's got nothing that's come forward apart from some people who said, "Oh, he's a fucking harsh marker. He was," and this sort of stuff. Which is, I have I've got children in school. How many times do you think my daughter has come back and criticised her teacher, saying they fucking mark too harsh, or they favour them girls over them girls, or they favour the boys, they don't like the boys, or that's sexist. I don't think I've had a week, let's say I don't think I've had a week in the last 4 years where I haven't had that conversation with my children. So again, these are normal statements. That's not, but again, because in this context where you've got someone being accused of a crime, these very normal statements are being used to push this, he's a killer. And I think people are missing the point that nothing shocking has been said. There's been nothing that would be what I'd class as an indicator that he had the capacity to do it. That's what's missing from all this. The actual statement being made that actually makes your ears prick up and say, that's not right. You know, let's not forget there's video footage out there of him interacting with female officers. That's there for everyone to see. Now, don't get me wrong. There's the Brian Koberger haters that will pull it apart and say, well, he's fucking being rude or whatever. But what did we really see from that interaction? Genuinely, did we see someone who was narcissistic? Did we see someone who hated women? Did we see someone who had a problem with authority? I think he was respectful. I think that he was showing that he was in the wrong and perhaps didn't initially understand why he was in the wrong, because he would normally be driving around in another state that had different laws and legislations around his driving, and he was questioning, which is his right to do. and was showing the degree of he's a smart guy.
Why at the end of the day, Harsh, do I feel like they've actually suppressed the people that would talk well for him? I've been waiting and waiting for the young lady that worked with him at WSU that supposedly had him put
Yeah.
cameras into her apartment and they were friends, and I'm waiting for her to come out and say, "You guys are all wrong about this guy. I hung out with him on a day-to-day basis, and he was genuinely a nice guy to me. I went out for coffee with him. I rode around in his car. Never once did I have an issue with him because I have this feeling, Harsh. I got this feeling if she had an issue with Koberger, she would have been front and center to
Oh, fuck me,
deliver
wouldn't
that
she?
message to
Oh, of
everybody.
course you would. Of
To
course you would.
everybody,
Like, people have turned it
you
on its
know.
ass anyway, ain't they? There's still people in comments saying that he put cameras in a house to fucking spy on her. That's going around, isn't it? But that, like, we've got a lot of females in our community here. You know, we're about 75% female, and so a lot of people are going to agree. Females are quite intuitive. They can get
Hmm.
a feeling with someone. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you just said. You've got this female who has felt comfortable enough to go to Brian, have a conversation that something is going on that is making her feel uncomfortable, and she goes to him for help.
Well, you got to think too, that trust and that bond between the two of them was formulated in less than 4 months.
Yeah,
And she still had enough trust in Brian, not only just to have conversation with him, but to potentially be hanging out at his apartment because there's many that have said that they've seen her at his apartment.
yeah,
That takes trust. That takes trust because I know many people, and even, people that I know, my wife, when she went to college, she would meet people at the college in the classes. It doesn't mean she was going to go hang out at their apartment. It doesn't mean that she was going to go have them put, security system into her home. She would talk to them at school and be done with it at that. This young lady evidently had some trust in Brian Koberger, and that was built within a very short period of time. And I truly believe if that trust was broken and her feelings were hurt by this, and he truly did something wrong within her apartment, she would be front and center on Nancy Grace, Ashley Banfield. They would have this girl everywhere, not just talking about it, they themselves, they would have her there talking about it.
yeah.
She's nowhere. She's nowhere.
And let's just say,
So
and let me just put this into the equation as well, right? So what we're saying is, let's just go with this for a minute, right? You've got Brian Koberger, who we're saying then has the capacity to kill. And if he's going to do this crime, would it not be right to say at the point where he was interacting with this other female, he already understands what he is and what he's got the potential and potentially already on the hunt to do this, right? So he's in Washington, a non-death penalty state. He's surrounded by students and what have you. He's already managed to befriend somebody to the point where they trust him. He's got access to her home. He can fit cameras in her house. Why not kill her?
why not take out the Tinder date that is supposedly had to lock herself in the bathroom and this and that? Or why do we have zero record of violence against women in Pennsylvania in the initial 27 years of his life?
Yeah,
It's one thing to have a narcotic issue. It's another thing to speed and turn left wrongly through lights. There, whatever it might be. You could even speak incorrectly to somebody and be rude and obnoxious. That doesn't formulate into a quadruple homicide type of person. Now, You and I don't know Brian Koberger personally, so we don't know what that flip side of that individual is, because everybody's got a flip side to them that showcases their negative side. But how deep is that negative side? Is it just an angry person that drinks a little too much? Is it someone that might break their TV in their living room over a football game, or is this somebody that literally would hunt women? And we don't see anything about hunting women. We don't see it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree. And that's my biggest question. Why go from, because it was something that Ted Bundy had said. There was an interview that they'd done where, oh, why is it that you kill? Why is it? And he would say that it was like a pressure building up. This pressure, it would build up over time, and he had to do it. And then once it was done, the pressure went and it went down, and it would build up and build up and build up. Bang, pressure down. And dependent on how long it took that pressure to build up would be how long that would be between these murders. So you think, if you're saying that Brian Koberger is somebody who wants to kill, there's a reason for that. There is something. If it was a relationship issue, then we would know that that would be the connection between Brian and the victims, wouldn't it? There would be a relationship that had broken down and had led to this. That would be the catalyst to this event. But you have none of that. There is nothing. There is, as Ann Taylor has said publicly in court, there is no connection between Brian Koberger and these. So if he's the person who did it, then you have to consider that he is just someone who wants to kill then. And I can't get that thought out of my head that there was easier pickings. There was easier ways to do this. To go into a house where you've got multiple cars outside. So you're entering into a house for a start. So you're on the back foot. You are on the back foot. Unless you are someone who's done this previously and you know what the fuck you're doing, and you are confident that even if you walk in there and there are 20 people in there, that you're good, you've got to have some fucking stones to walk into that house on your maiden voyage, if you like. Again, I can't stress enough. I can't understand why you wouldn't. If it's just about killing, why not kill the person who you've spent 4 months building a relationship with and you've got access to their home? Because generally these sort of people, they don't have empathy. So that it's not like, well, I actually like them, so I'm going to do it there. I'll do it with these people in this death penalty state, and I'm going to walk into a house in the middle of the night with all these cars outside and hope that there's not loads of people in there when I walk in, and I'm going to go round this house and just randomly pick this door. Then I'm going to, I'm going to walk in this house and walk round up the stairs, go there, I'm going to come back and walk past that door. I just can't fucking work it out. I can't work it out. And to me, so like Stargazer says, I think he's killed before. I think whoever did this has killed before. The question is,
I believe that if Brian Koberger has been known or thought to have killed before, they would have figured out where he killed before by
they
now.
looked, didn't
I
they?
mean,
They
we're two
looked.
years into this.
They
Yeah, oh yeah, they've
looked.
been digging, and that I learned one time, because where I was being housed for years in the penitentiary, I was around a lot of people that had taken lives, and the number one thing that I always got from them in conversation was they had a reason. They did it for a reason, and they stood solid on their reasoning. It was crazy to see and to hear them talk, but this was my reason. It was a damn good reason, and I stand by it. And it's like, wow, that's not a good reason, bud, but they truly believed that. If Brian Koberger was this individual, why have we not heard a reason? Like, there's got to be a reason for this crime. This crime didn't just happen for no reason. It happened for a reason. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been four people. It would
Yeah,
have been one.
yeah,
A no reason crime could be one, not four. So there's a reason.
yeah,
Why have we heard no rumblings of a reason? There's no rumblings from, okay, out here there's rumblings. You
yeah,
get into the prosecutions and you get into the defense's mindsets of what they're battling in court right now. Nothing has made sense for a reason. No Ashley Banfield, no Nancy Grace, no Howard Bloom,
Yeah.
None of these people have formulated a real reason. And that's what's scary about this crime is we either have an individual or individuals still out here amongst us to have reasons to commit a horrific crime like this,
Yeah.
or we're not capable as an investigative team and a prosecuting judicial system to find the reason for this crime.
Yeah.
That's scary. That's a scary thought. That's a very, very scary thought.
Yeah. I just, I fear, I do fear that he's going to get found guilty. There was just something that I just, if it stays at if it stays as it is there enough? And I think that Delphi has proved that there is enough. It's like you only have to convince the jurors, don't you? That's all it is, and that's the scary thing. They're the only people you have to convince. And how many people have been convinced on YouTube alone that Brian Koberger already deserves to be executed?
Just remember when you get into the courtroom, it's who tells the better
Story.
story that grabs the jury and they say, man, that was really, man, that was a remarkable story. I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Because look at what mainstream media has already done. Like you said, if we go out into the community and we say, why is Brian Koberger guilty? It's the exact verbiage and wording that comes from mainstream media. There's nothing that comes different to you than what's said through mainstream media that we haven't really formulated as factual as of yet. There's no proof an Amazon knife was ordered and delivered, and he broke into the WSU cam lab and all this stuff. None of
Yeah.
that is factually convincing.
Yeah,
But
that's like
people
we
have
got
found him
someone.
guilty by
we we got someone in chat who said that exact thing about you. Probably saw it. I don't know whether you've got chat up, but someone had said, but they've got a receipt of him buying a knife sheath off Amazon, and it's this what fucking
but they don't.
frustrates me. They don't. Like
They
there's
don't.
people who literally believe Brian Koberger is guilty and deserves to be executed because they don't know how to read a fucking doc properly.
Mm.
That's the frustrating thing. Is that you have people who don't have the ability to take in the information and properly understand what they're seeing. And that's just scary. It's
You know,
scary when you've got
and
someone's life in their hands.
a lot of people ask me, why do I not dive in and go over the docs more and do more stuff on my channel like because I can give you my interpretation of what I'm reading. I can give you what I feel. I can give you my opinion. I can't give you the factual basis of exactly what these lawyers are trying to state because they write them in lawyer terms. You know, these are terms that a layman like me isn't just going to grasp every single word and formulate it correctly. So I avoid that. I give you my opinion based off of what I think, but I can't give you the exact reasoning of what we're reading. And a lot of people jump to the search warrant for Amazon that they were looking for this knife and this knife sheath means they found a knife and a knife sheath. No, that doesn't mean that. That means that they asked Amazon to return information about people that bought
Yeah,
knife sheaths
yeah,
and knives. That doesn't mean Brian Koberger's name was actually on it. Um, yeah,
yeah. I have this
so it's
same
scary.
conversation.
It's
People don't understand. Even in this situation, you can't go to Amazon and say, can we have all of Brian Koberger's purchase history over the last 5 years, please? Because Amazon will say, fuck off.
right.
But they have to specifically go and say, can you give us information on the purchase from this account for these items, please? And if they're there, they'll
Right.
send them. If they're not, they won't. But they have to be very specific on what they're asking. And that's frustrating in some situations. But if they're looking for something very specific, then that's all they have the right to know. They don't. They don't have the right to know that he's buying, I said this before, nipple tassels and stuff like that, because that's got fuck all to do with his crime. They have the right to know if he bought what was used during this crime. But people have
Well,
translated that doc into, well, he bought a K-bar knife. He bought it off Amazon. We know that. We've seen the doc. No, we haven't. And so now
right.
you've told them that. Have they then changed their mind? Do you think that you've
No.
been able to say no? They haven't, because that's all. That's now in there. They have been they've conditioned themselves through their lack of understanding to believe someone deserves to die. How scary is that? How scary is that we've got into this position? And I always say, I set this channel up, right? I've got other channels on this platform, nothing to do with true crime niche, and nobody knows some of the channels that I've got because I don't want them to coexist. But I had a massive interest in true crime. I have done since I was at school. I did when I was 16 years old. I suppose the alternative to what you'd call in the US a dissertation was based on the death penalty in the US when I was 16. But what I saw constantly on this platform was channels that they would force their community to agree with them. So you'd have these channels with a community that was solidly on one direction. And I thought, you can't have that. I want to do a channel where you can coexist. But what I've learned is you can't change people's minds, because people will make their mind up and then all they will do is they will seek out affirmation. And anything else, it's like they're blind to it. Blind to it. It's like when I studied psychology, I got a degree in psychology, and we were shown about these. There was these natives like hundreds of years ago, and they literally couldn't see things that the ships had come sailing to them. And because they didn't understand what a ship was, they'd never seen them before, the brain wouldn't see them because it couldn't compute what they are. And that's what you see on this platform. If people don't understand that there is a potential for Brian Koberger to be innocent, they will not see anything that may suggest that. They are completely fucking blind to it. And even if you wave it in front of them, it doesn't matter. So all you can hope is that through these conversations that you and I have, and when we talk about these cases, that something in some of them clicks. And I think we've done it. I think there are people, and I've spoken to people who have said, do you know what? When this first started, I absolutely believe Brian Koberger was guilty. And now I'm thinking he might not be. Now, Brian Koberger could be guilty. He could be. He could have done it. We're not naive enough to think there is an impossibility for him to be the guilty one. But that doesn't, if I'm happy, if we go down the road and they prove in court, something happens and he's guilty, I ain't going to feel bad. I'm not going to think that I was wrong. I'm going to get some fucking hate. There'll be some people, of course we'll get it. We told you, we told you, we told you. That doesn't make you right, because you believed he was guilty and he deserved to die at a point where that wasn't accurate. At that point, he didn't deserve to die. And that's what people can't compute. They can't understand that there is a process to go through before you have the right to tell someone that they deserve the punishment that's coming to them. And there'll be people who feel that their behavior was justified. There was justification in it. And there just isn't. There isn't justification in it. And I want more people to just be able to slow down and think, do you know what? I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I am going to take more time to consider everything. And I'm not just going to say, kill the guy now. And that's all I want.
I think the reason why I came to this platform, and I like you, I'm into true crime. I think, unfortunately, in my past, I was too into true crime because I kept going out there and committing crime. So it's like, here it is, it's right here. But as I've gotten older and I've slowed down, my focus is I remember going through the judicial system and the trials and the tribulations that I could help people better understand that these things are not always exactly as how they're shown to you. There's a lot behind the scenes that's happening. There's a lot of, feelings and emotions and things happening in the courtroom. And I just want to see people understand. Let's stick to the innocent until proven guilty, because unfortunately, if we start to allow guilt to come before innocence phase, we're not going to have many people found innocent that did not commit the crime. They're going to be found guilty so fast, you're never going to learn they were not the one that did it. So you've got to patiently work through the process. And I believe that the Delphi case should have scared enough people into knowledgeably knowing. Now you have judges that are willing to withhold evidence out of a trial so that the jury can't even see certain pieces of evidence. They won't even allow the defendant to put on a proper defense. So now if we bring that over into the Idaho 4, we already see the argument that Brian Koberger had to make a decision on whether to waive his speedy trial right so that he could have the proper lawyer interaction and capability to build a defense. Because how do you defend yourself in a case that the prosecution doesn't even want you to have all the evidence of?
Yeah.
How do you legitimately defend yourself? You don't even know what you're defending yourself against because it hasn't been provided to you. So you're going to shock me at trial. If I decide to go to speedy trial, you're going to have a banger when we get there. And all of a sudden, I've got all this just more circumstantial evidence and a couple of witnesses that are willing to testify to that because the defense hasn't had the opportunity to vet those people and get whether they're legitimate or not legitimate. So now I'm going to get the death penalty on a speedy trial because I don't have proper counsel or ability to defend myself. That's not the way this should work. This is not the way this should work.
What do you want? Do you want to waive your right, or do you want a trial by ambush?
Right. Well, and that's legitimately what it would be is, hey, look at us. We're going to withhold our evidence against you. And especially we're going to hold the evidence that could help you defend yourself. The evidence that can help you prove your innocence, we're going to withhold all of that, and we're going to force you into the speedy trial. But if you want this evidence that could help your case and help your lawyers defend you, you better waive that. You better waive it. I mean, come on. That's sickening that that's even possible. But unfortunately, we're seeing it. We're watching it right before us. Now, what do we do? What do we do as a society? What do we do as people? That's the question.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to give the community the chance to ask some questions to either you, I, or both. We've been going for just over an hour. Say another 20 minutes, do some questions. I'm going to give this hoodie, I'm giving away at the end of this live. I'm going to randomly.
Are you going to wash
someone.
it first?
Oh, yeah.
You going to wash it first?
I'll say they can. You know what I mean? That's they get to pick, and they can obviously tell me privately. I won't share it with anyone. You know, I wear decent deodorant though. To be fair, I think what have I got?
Well, that's always good. That's good.
I've got. What is this? Invictus Paco Rabanne. Oh, and spray it with that. That'll smell nice. That might smell like cats because they keep jumping on me. Right, so question time, guys. Just put who you want to ask the question, and then your question. If it's both, obviously both. Someone put JB Gunner scares me more than Brian Koberger. Fuck JB Gunner will fall asleep on you. He'd get in the fucking house and pass out in the fucking lounge. Harsh hoodie. We don't want it washed, you filthy animals. Da-da-da-da.
Why did I know that was coming? I knew that would come out of somewhere. I mean, it just is what it is.
They do it on purpose. There's a market for it, mate. You can sell anything on eBay. I've asked everyone, why did no one see the deceased leaving the residence? I think it's a good question, but I think the reality is, in the grander scheme of things, you don't generally. I don't think it's as how can I say? It's not as normal as what people may think it is. I think they do try and hide that from the public, don't they? So they would have done it at a time when there's perhaps nobody about.
From what I understand, from what just people have mentioned, is they did it in by blocking off almost like a big area, bringing
Yeah,
in. But I think it's that truck that came in that had the big like tarping over the sides and all
yeah,
the craziness going on. I don't like the fact that there wasn't some symbolism of it coming out, but I understand it as well. I do understand it.
yeah.
I just don't like seeing U-Haul trucks coming up to the house driven by, police to remove personal items. I didn't like that much, but
Um, at AR, how can they not find Xana and Ethan's phone when they were turned off? Brian's was off, so how can they pin it to cell towers and a Bluetooth device, as SG says? Well, I don't think they can they? I don't think. What's it saying? They can't. They cannot find Xana and Ethan's phone when they're switched off. Brian's was off, so how can they pin it to cell towers and the Bluetooth devices? Yeah, you see, Steve Goncalves was alluding to a point that wasn't the night of the crime, though, wasn't he? He was saying that the phone had touched the Bluetooth device not on the night of the crime, but on another date. And the reality of that statement is, he was talking shit. That's the
yeah,
long and
I
short of it. It didn't happen.
I think some of the things that come out of their mouths are just nonsense that have been fed to them by other people trying to create evidence. And it's sad. It's very sad that they would even then take that to a public platform and speak. I mean, we all knew there was no chance that Brian Cover's phone was close enough to hit anybody's Wi-Fi. It didn't hit anybody's Alexa machine or any of that, their Bluetooth. I mean, I don't know. I'm not into the whole phone cell data stuff. That's just not something
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think a lot of what Ray was saying went over a lot of people's heads. And I think that's, again, it comes down to what are people's understanding of what's being said. Because if they don't understand it, they kind of glaze over, don't they?
Hmm.
But basically, the be all and end all is the route that they're claiming Brian Koberger took. There is no physical evidence of that. A lot of it is speculation, and speculation of a route they can't. That's not enough to put someone to death. They would physically have to show the workings of where he was, and apparently there is an ability to do it. So if there is an ability to do it, then do it and show it being done. That's as simple as that. What do we got? We got, why did they knock the house down?
I think that we've all talked about that so much that was a very bad decision to do that. Even the Gonsalves family, who I don't think has ever agreed with me on anything, agrees on that very point that they should have never knocked that house down.
No,
I
they
think
shouldn't
we
have
all
done.
know that.
They didn't need to knock it down. It didn't need to be. It wasn't affecting anybody. You know that it wasn't affecting anybody by the sheer lack of people who took up the counselling offer. They obviously got a proportion, an amount of money to pay for counselling for anyone who needed it. And well, how many people did it? And the truth of it is, young people today are not affected like we would have been when we was younger. There is such a fucking lack of empathy. It is unreal. It's scary. It is scary. Um,
Maybe they had to take the house down because they were tired of people peeing on it. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I don't
You
think
know.
there was anything real. I don't know. Like some people said, maybe they were hiding evidence and things like that, which I don't think that there'd have been a lot of evidence that you could have, well, apart from the DNA samples that we're still questioning, the obviously the free DNA samples that are apparently been overlooked, should we say? But I don't know. It shouldn't have been knocked down. That I think we can all agree with. It shouldn't have been knocked down. But what was the true reason it was done?
To be honest with you, Harsh, I mean, if we're talking about evidence, I wouldn't think it would be blood evidence because they're going to cut all that out, take it back to their labs, do whatever with it. The if you tear down the home, in my opinion, if we're talking about evidentiary value, it's to protect Dylan and Bethany due to the acoustics. What can you hear? What can you not hear? What are you able to see from the places outside of the home of where somebody could potentially be looking in windows? Do we want to distort a jury's vision of that? Because I guarantee you a jury is going to want to walk that home. They're
Yeah,
going to want to walk the home.
yeah,
And if that's not an option, well, now you force them into a way of viewing things based upon how you want to do that. I'm just shocked the defense was okay with it happening. Like,
yeah.
why Ann Taylor signed off on that, I just don't get. I don't know why.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And when you said like acoustics, I think that is potentially that's the biggest thing here, isn't it? The acoustics here, because it goes back to what we spoke about earlier. This being a targeted crime, or this being just an opportunistic, where someone goes into a house, they've got it in their head, I'm going to kill someone, and I'm going to go into a house and do it. For a start off, I can't buy that because again, I think that if it's an opportunistic crime, it's someone who is trying to release that pressure, then why go into a house that is more likely to have multiple occupants that you could get overpowered by? I can't work that out. You would
Well,
find a house that's got fucking elderly people or a young family, husband, wife, and a kid, not somewhere that could potentially have 50 fucking 20-odd-year-old athletes in it. That I can't work it out.
well,
But
and at the end of the day, Harsh, I kind of have a comment to those that say only one person was targeted in this home. No, that's not possible because somebody that gets in and gets their target gets out and tries to escape. Now, this person did escape the home, but they hit two rooms on opposite sides. I mean, different floors, opposite sides, with the exit right in the middle of both, and another room door right in the middle of both. And they didn't try to go in that room door, and they didn't run out the back door. So when Steve says, well, he didn't have to go upstairs, that means he believes it could have all been handled in Xanda's room. Why not just exit the house as you come out of that walkway? If upstairs was your target, you got two exits. You got upstairs exit and you got the kitchen exit again, and you didn't take it, meaning you wanted both rooms.
yeah, I
It doesn't
agree.
sound like you attempted. You didn't attempt to get into Kaylee's room. You didn't attempt to get into Dylan's room. You sure as hell didn't go down to the first floor and scare anybody down there.
Yeah,
So you picked two rooms, and there was a reason for that. And until somebody can literally come out and say, well, and I should reiterate this. Somebody off the YouTube platform, like I want to see investigators or a defense team specify this is why this happened in these two rooms. Because there are creators that are coming up with good narratives of why it happened in those rooms. I get
yeah,
it. But I want to hear it through the actual this is why we're trying Brian Coburn. This is why he would pick these two rooms.
yeah.
And I haven't heard that yet. I haven't heard that.
And I have to say, I have to ask because I don't know where you stand on this whatsoever. And this is I'm saying this, and I know some people when you start talking about this specific person, there's again a contingent of people who feel that it's disrespectful, whatever. But this is why I can't discount Brent Kopacker. Now, some people have turned around and said, but there's nothing that connects Brent Kopacker to this crime whatsoever. But there's nothing that connects Brian Koberger to this crime. There isn't. There's nothing as much as at the moment. I'm not saying that again later on down the line something might come up. Who knows? This may indeed be a fucking trial by ambush. It could be. Could still be. But at this point in time, there's as much connecting Brian Koberger, apart from the fucking knife sheath, whatever, which I still think was a golden goose. Brent Kopacker. Because I look at it like this. You've got someone who goes into a house, like you quite rightly said. And I think of this from a military perspective. And for those of you who don't know, you may know, I live on a military base. I'm surrounded by military. We are a military family. We've grown up in it. So I know what I'm talking about. So you go into a house. If you're going in somewhere to do a job, there is a way that you handle that. This house was handled identically to how a military operation on a building would have gone. To go in, you know where you're going. You take the highest route first to give you a height advantage should anything go wrong. And then you work your way back down and out. So, in my opinion, some of the information that we know, and until anything else comes out, I still stand by this, to me reeks of someone with some degree of military training. Furthermore, statements, and I've said this previously, statements made by Kathy Mabbott and supported by Steve Goncalves, in that the injuries didn't match. The injuries didn't match. The K-bar knife, for instance, can be used in 3 different ways, and it would appear that it was used in each of them ways. So if you're someone who's not au fait with this weapon, how are you going to use it? If I gave you it and said, use that, go over there, give you a dummy, and said, do your worst on it, what would you do with it? How would you use it? How would you hold that weapon? And what injuries would you, say it was a pig's carcass, for instance, what injuries would you leave on that pig's carcass if I gave you a K-bar knife for 30, 40 seconds? But you
Me,
give
it's a
someone,
direct stabbing,
yeah.
you know,
But
just a
what would
direct
happen if
stab,
you,
almost in one place.
what would happen if you gave that to someone who had military training, who was specifically trained to use that?
It's a whole nother ball game.
Would the
You know?
injuries not match?
Of course, yeah, because he's the person utilizing that, and I get exactly what you're talking about. Someone like me that would be an amateur would resort to the single way I would know how to use the
Yeah,
knife, which would be almost like a shank in the penitentiary. I hold it, and it's just a direct one in and out plunge, and you're
yeah,
going to see maybe every single poke is going to be within a couple inch radius.
yeah,
Whereas somebody that's trained with this can maneuver that knife. They can move it in between 2 different hands, different angles, different positions. They're going to know the strength points to hold that knife depending on what type of blow you're administering to somebody. And it's not going to phase them if they have to switch hands or make a move. They're not worried about fumbling the knife or dropping the knife because they're prepared for that. They're used to it.
yeah,
And that's where I think the difference in wounds would be more spread out in a body, and the wounds would never match because they have different ways of utilizing the weapon compared to someone like me that does not.
yeah. Like, can you imagine just like if that weapon had been used upstairs and what condition that weapon would have been in at that stage? And I'm thinking about the cast off from the injuries and things like that onto the hand of the individual doing it and the weapon, the handle itself. Do you know what I mean? And then you go into another room and you use that again. The skill and the ability to do that. You're giving Brian Koberger, this PhD student, a lot of fucking credit. A lot of credit. Because again, you think as well, this is about their mental capacity. What do they have the mental resilience to do? Because you'd think if you've never done this before, you think, and then you finally go into a room and do it, And just say, for instance, okay, he went to do it to one person. He thought that Maddie was going to be on this room on their own, right? So he walks into this room. Fuck, there's two of them. There's two of them. Didn't expect her to be there because she'd fucking moved out. So he's already on the back foot because he's gone into a house and he's been caught unawares. But he's overcome that hurdle. What, at that point, what do you think his mindset's going to be? So he's gone
Get
in
the
this room
hell
and
out of here.
but he hasn't. He's fucking
Right.
reset. He has gone downstairs, like you say. He's gone past the doors and gone into another fucking room and done exactly the same again.
Mhm.
And that is, and we're trying to say that Brian Goldberger is the guy who did it. And like someone said at the beginning of this conversation, did the person who did this, had they killed before? And in answer to that question, I 100% believe that whoever did this crime had killed before. Whether they had killed people before or they had come to terms with the fact that they were able to kill and had perhaps they were a fucking hunter and they had hunted animals, but they were skilled enough and they had the mental resilience to go in, do what needed to be done without thinking about it, come out and go and do it again. And I don't think Brian Koberger's got that. I don't think, looking at him, he doesn't look like he's got that mental resilience. I think he's almost someone who I would think, okay, if you want to say he did it then, he was obsessed with one of the girls. He'd have got in there, perhaps panicked and fucking freaked out and done it, and then fucking ran off, got in his car and fucking flew off down the road. I don't think he'd have been the person who reset, remained very fucking calm. Let's not forget, you said acoustics. You talked about acoustics. So this all happened without alerting, apparently, two other people in the house at all. Yes, they heard murmurs. They heard whispers, but they didn't hear fucking 4 people being executed. So they're either lying or this was done quick. Done and to the point where not enough noise was made to raise any real alarm bells. Across 2 floors and out and done. And we're supposed to believe that the only real thing that was left behind was a fucking knife sheath. What, because he was holding that
And I
in the other
think
hand?
that's the worst thing too, because we're all coming together because of the 4 lives lost and the justice that needs to be found for them, and yet people won't accept the fact that what's happening before our very eyes just doesn't seem right. So where's the justice? Like,
Yeah.
come on, Xana. It sounds like Xana and Kaylee put up a fight during this struggle, and to, I guess, disrespect them in a manner that a single perp, first timer, no knowledge of what he's doing, could overtake these 2 strong young ladies that fought for their life, and nobody's willing to open their mind and see that just doesn't sound right. That's not justice. And at the end of the day, like you, if Brian Koberger were to be found guilty based on 100% proof that he committed this crime, and there's no doubt about it, okay, I'll accept my wrongs and I'll have to bite my words. I said the man was innocent and I misread who he was as a person, and I'll take all of that responsibility, and I'll have to lower my head for the words I said. But you better be able to prove it. You better
Yeah.
be able to prove it, because I'm going to question it. If this goes down like the Delphi case did, I'm going to question it. And I think many of us are, and it's going to become more and more frustrating each and every day that real justice is overlooked just to find somebody guilty.
Yeah.
That,
I
that
don't think
that's a
you'd have to
scary thought.
hang your head or anything, because I know that you still are like me in that you are not completely naive to the fact that he could have done it. You just don't think at this
Oh
point
yeah,
that
yeah,
he has, and that's where I am. Neither of us are naive enough to think that it's impossible. So I don't think
right.
either of us would have anything to feel bad about. Nobody in this community who thinks Brian Koberger is innocent I would dare anybody to say that they or ridicule them or vilify them for having that thought, because that's where everyone should be now. Everybody should be, unless, like I say, even the Goncalves, you know, you've got to put them in a position of, I suppose, some form of protection, because they're in it. You know, they've lost a child, and we have to accept that. And however much we disagree with some of the stuff they do, and they fucking drive me insane, and they drive me insane because I want to like them because of what they've been through, but their actions beyond the crime itself and how they've pushed themselves out and certain things that they've done, I almost feel that they're going down the route of turning this entire situation that isn't just about them. It ain't just about Kaylee. It ain't about Kaylee and Maddie. It's about all of them, and it's about everybody involved, them included. It's about every single fucking person getting the justice that they deserve. And if you fucking turn this into the Goncalves family versus Brian Koberger, it comes back to what you said, and that is, it's who's likable. Because if the fucking jury don't like you, then you're on the back foot. And then if the right story is told on top of that, you know, how bad is it going to be if Brian Koberger's guilty of this crime, but he fucking walks because people hate the Goncalves family? And they just want... There are people out there who you see say, I don't care if he did it. I want him to fucking walk because of how he's been treated in the run-up to this trial. You get 2 or 3 people like that on the jury, what are you going to do about it? And what's this? And what can you do to guarantee that doesn't happen? As much as you can try and vet these people, ultimately, if someone wants to get onto that jury for this trial, then they a lot of people will say what they need to say, and they'll do what they need to do to get on it. You've just got to hope that they're being honest, and that's it.
I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be the best storyteller's going to win. But, you know, at the end of the day, too, for the Gonzalez family to be able to move forward and get over this tragedy, they need to kind of reel themselves back in a little bit publicly, because there are people like you that want to like them and want to support them, but it's hard to do. But then there's also people like me. I'm aggravated by them. I want nothing to do with them. Like, I'm not saying I don't want their daughter to get the justice that she deserves, but I want nothing to do with the Gonzalez family. Like,
No.
I'm done with it. I'm just done with it. I don't want to hear anything else they have to say. I wouldn't pledge $1 to them. You know, I wouldn't even sit down and hold their hand through the difficult process. They've lost my respect, and we're just done, you know? And I'm
Yeah.
sure I've lost theirs too. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure I've lost theirs too, and that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Right, we're going to give this hoodie away, and then we're going to wrap up. I'm sure you've got stuff to do. It's now midnight here, and I've still got stuff to do. So what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do this, I'm going to ask AR to give me a number between 1 and 50.
Let's do 46.
46. So now I'm going to, from that comment that came up, which was this comment when you said it, I'm going to count back 46 comments. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 35, 36. Where are we? 36. Oh, there we are. 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46. That is the 46th comment. Count them back. So, Robert with True Crime Podcast, you have won this hoodie. You'll just have to email me. The email is in the description of this video. And we'll have a chat about where it needs to be sent to, if you want it. If you want it washed, obviously. But yeah,
before we
I was going to
before we
say,
say goodbye, do you mind if I give one shout out before we let go here?
Of course you can. I was then about to say, before we sign off, is there anything you have to say to anyone?
Yep, I got my good buddy Pete with Murder Metal Mayhem, who has, I'm sure you and everybody else knows, been battling since May some major health issues. He is back in the hospital, ladies and gentlemen, battling the same leg, same infection, same ordeal. They've already amputated part of his leg. I just want everybody, please just think of him. Whether you like his content or not, this is an individual that really loves everybody, all the subscribers, the outright community. I know he respects you, Harsh. For some reason, he calls me a friend, but I absolutely adore him. He is a real friend, and he's battling. He's really battling, ladies and gentlemen. I hope he gets to see this, and I hope we can make him feel better and we can get him back to normal here soon. So, big shout out to Pete with Murder Metal Mayhem.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Get well soon, my friend. And so this is obviously a live. This is only the second time, that I've had someone on my channel. And the first one I took down after I did it because there was some information that I got that I weren't 100% happy with. But you are someone who I've wanted to do a live with for a while, since before we last spoke, and we're going to do it. The downside is I'm fucking useless. People think that this is all I do. Sadly, it's not all I do. And sometimes I can plan as much as I want, but things just can get run away. But it was a pleasure to have you with me. It was a pleasure to have a chat. We're marking the 2-year anniversary of this crime, a horrendous, horrendous crime that saw the tragic loss of 4 lives, and in a blink of an eye, wiped out. And I think, if anything we should take from this, is that fucking life's short. It is short, and anything can happen. They went out that night and as if everything was normal, and it would be the last time that they would be here. Think just that day alone, the things that they had spoken about, the things that they had potentially spoke about doing, what plans they had for the next day, for the next week, for the next month, for the next year. And that's gone. And we do all these videos and we talk about these things, and, we argue about it, and we have our opinions on it. And the sad thing is, I think, whether we agree with one another or not, we all want the same thing, and that is that whoever did this, they deserve to fucking burn, and that's it. And whether you believe in the death penalty, that's a debate for some other time, but they deserve to be punished to the absolute fucking most that you can punish someone. But it needs to be the right person, because if we just punish the person who makes people feel better, the Goncalves family feel better, we want them to feel better. Of course we want them to feel better. It's not going to make them feel better if we convict the wrong person, execute the wrong person, and then later on down the line it turns out that you had fuck all to do with it. We just want to be right. And I just think that as a community, sometimes we just need to just slow down and understand that just adding another life to this list of deaths, it should be harder than this. It should be harder than this. you have to make sure that you've done absolutely everything. You've exhausted every single. It should be more about what do we have to do to keep this guy alive, and if we fucking run out of things to keep him alive, then it's at that point you've done everything, and you've got nowhere else to go with it. He did it. He did it. We seem to, as a society, have twisted that round now to you just need the fucking absolute bare minimum to be okay to kill someone else. That's not justice for Kaylee, Xana, Ethan, and Maddie. That ain't justice. But thank you once again, AR. Carry on doing what you're doing, my friend. You're a fantastic guy. Love what you do. I have a lot of respect for you. It's been a pleasure. This community is a fucking amazing community as well. So do go and show AR some love. It's been a little bit different. We've obviously haven't included you guys that much because we're both fucking ramblers and we love to ramble. But it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah. So I will thank
Truly
you.
Appreciative of you.
Not a problem at all, my friend.
Truly appreciative of you.
We will probably do something again at some point. I would love to be able to book that in now, but I can't book in what I'm doing tomorrow without it likely to go wrong. But I'm sure at some point we'll do something again together, my friend. But if I don't speak to you face to face like this before Christmas, have yourself an absolutely amazing Christmas, you and your family. And I hope that the new year brings you everything you want, my friend. I know you've had struggles with your health. You're going through stuff yourself at the moment. So I hope that all of that fucking gets ironed out as well. And yeah, I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much. No quit. We keep moving forward. We keep doing what we do. I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem at all, my friend. I'm gonna chuck you out. Kick out time. Take
Bye-bye
care, my friend. So there you go. That was me and AR, and you guys on the peripheral of that. But you guys are absolutely fucking amazing. You know, it's off the back end of these tragedies that we have all formulated this community where we get to share our days together, our morning coffee, our afternoon coffee. You know, we've come a long way. We've come a long way, and I wouldn't fucking change it. I wouldn't change it. You're all amazing. Thank you to the mods. I haven't really been able to keep an eye on what has been going on in chat, but I'm sure that you have been keeping that all in check because you always do. So I thank you very much for that. Thank you for everybody who done super stickers as well and memberships. So let me just have a quick look through here. What do we have? We have Mercy Cat who gifted some memberships. We had Julie with a super sticker. Thank you. We had Wendy. Thank you very much. She says true justice for the Idaho 4. We have Brian's Ramblings. And we have Jeremy, what was that? Jeremy 2? I've fucked that up. I fuck everything up when I try and pronounce things that aren't like 3-letter words. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone. And we'll be live again on Sunday. So keep your eyes peeled. And tomorrow, well, I say tomorrow, it's actually today because it's like 25 past midnight. So keep your eyes peeled because there'll be 2 videos coming. So you, yeah, love you all. Take care.